My name is Elena Ward, 32 years old. A month ago, I thought I'd be walking down an aisle in a white dress. Instead, I'm sitting in a half-packed apartment, staring at a text message from my ex-fiancé, telling me he's just maxed out my credit card on a refreshment trip after canceling our wedding. If you'd told me this would be my life 3 weeks before the big day, I would have laughed. We'd been together 5 years, engaged for the last one. Wedding planning was exactly what everyone says it is: stressful, expensive, a slow drip of tiny arguments over flowers and seating charts, and whether we really needed a $1,200 statement arch for photos. We'd been bickering more than usual lately: his family's drama over the guest list, the mounting costs, his tendency to say, "We'll figure it out later," whenever I brought up numbers. I told myself it was normal. Pre-wedding jitters. Two people under pressure. Last Tuesday, he proved me wrong. We were in my kitchen, surrounded by to-do lists and vendor contracts. I was on the phone trying to negotiate with the florist when he set his coffee cup down and said very calmly, "I can't do this, Elena. I need space. I'm calling off the wedding." Just like that. No fight, no big blow-up, no "let's try therapy" or "can we fix this?" Just a flat pronouncement, like he was canceling a gym membership. I remember staring at him, the words on the florist's contract blurring. "I don't understand," I said. "What happened?" "I'm overwhelmed," he said. "This doesn't feel right. I've been unhappy for a while. I need time to figure myself out." Time, I repeated, 3 weeks before our wedding. He didn't even look guilty, just tired, and maybe a little annoyed that I was ruining his big moment by asking questions. He packed a bag that night and went to his parents' house. Every attempt I made to talk after that hit a brick wall. He was not ready, too emotional, needed space. Space, apparently, did not include any concern for the fact that our lives were tangled together in deposits and contracts and expectations. The next few days felt like a fever dream. I started the slow, humiliating work of unplanning a wedding, calling vendors, explaining in a choked voice that the event was off, asking what could be salvaged, hearing the same answer again and again. "There's a cancellation fee. The deposit is non-refundable. We can offer a small credit." Every call was like swallowing gravel. Financially, it was already bad. I'm not rich. I make a decent living, but we'd stretched for this wedding. My main credit card, the one with the highest limit, $25,000, was in my wallet. It's the card I use for most big purchases. Logan, my ex-fiancé, was an authorized user on that account. He had his own card with his name on it. When we set it up, we agreed it was for emergencies or things we both discussed in advance. Plane tickets to see his family, a surprise hotel for my birthday that he'd told me about afterwards with this big, proud smile. We never agreed it was his personal unlimited fun pass. By this morning, I was already staring down a financial hit from lost deposits and non-refundable fees. Mentally rearranging my budget for the next year, I thought the worst was over. Then my phone buzzed. I saw his name on the screen. For a second, my chest lifted. Maybe he was finally going to give me something, an explanation, an apology, anything. I opened the message. "Hey, just landed. Needed a serious refreshment trip after all this stress. Maxed out your platinum for it. Spa package, new wardrobe, the works. You always said you loved me and wanted me to be happy. Don't worry, I'll pay you back eventually." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Maxed out. My card has a $25,000 limit. He wrote it like he'd bought a latte on his way to work. Not like he'd just taken a blowtorch to my finances. A refreshment trip. After he blew up our wedding. And the line that really made my vision go white around the edges. "You always said you loved me and wanted me to be happy." As if that were a blank check. The Elena from a week ago probably would have called him immediately. Shouted. Cried. Begged him to please think about what he was doing. Instead, something inside me just went very, very still. Not numb, not hysterical, just cold. I stared at the screen for a long minute, then I typed one word. "Enjoy." I hit send. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the number on the back of my card. After a short hold music interlude that felt surreal given the adrenaline in my veins, a calm voice answered. "Thank you for calling. How can I help you today?" "I need to report my card stolen or misused," I said, "and dispute a series of fraudulent charges." "Of course, ma'am. Do you have the card in your possession?" "Yes," I said. "I have my card. My ex-fiancé was an authorized user with his own card. He ended our engagement last week, took his card with him, and has just informed me via text that he's maxed out the account on a non-emergency personal trip. We have been arguing for days, and there was no agreement for these purchases. The rep's tone shifted, turning more serious. I'm very sorry to hear that. Let's take a look. I read off the card number. They pulled up the recent activity. I could hear the quiet clicking of keys on the other end, a kind of forensic rhythm. Okay, the rep said after a moment. I'm seeing several large transactions. First-class airfare, a multi-night booking at a luxury resort. These were authorized a day or two ago. I'm also seeing a series of high-end boutique purchases today. Total is approximately $22,800 so far. I closed my eyes briefly. Yes, I believe those are all part of what he just referred to as his refreshment trip. I have his text message admitting he maxed the card after canceling our wedding. I'd like you to screenshot that and save it, the rep said. We'll open a fraud investigation and flag these transactions immediately. We'll also cancel his authorized user card and reissue your card with a new number. Please do, I said. We went through the formalities, the dates, the amounts, the fact that our relationship had already ended when the charges were made. I could hear, underneath the professionalism, a note of quiet sympathy. When the call ended, I hung up and went straight to my computer to file an online police report for unauthorized use. It felt dramatic, typing his full name into that form, but then I remembered the text again. Maxed out your platinum, and any lingering doubt evaporated. When the report was submitted, I forwarded him the email from the card company confirming the fraud case number. Then, in a separate text, I sent him the police report number with a short note. FYI, have a great trip, or what's left of it. Then I put my phone face down on the table. Part of me was bracing for the explosion, the furious calls, the accusations, the guilt trips from his family. Part of me was weirdly calm, like I'd finally drawn a line I should have drawn a long time ago. I've been a doormat before. With exes, with bosses, even with parts of Logan's family. I'd let things slide because it was easier than fighting. Not this time. This time he could enjoy his little vacation knowing the bill was coming due. The explosion didn't come right away. That almost bothered me more than if he'd started blowing up my phone immediately. For the first 24 hours after I sent the fraud report numbers, everything was weirdly quiet. Too quiet. I pictured him strutting through boutiques with his new refreshment wardrobe, tapping the card without a second thought, basking in the artificial glow of resort lighting, while I sat in my half-empty apartment, sorting through vendor contracts and cancellation policies. Somewhere between returning the cake topper and putting my dress in the back of the closet, my phone finally lit up. A barrage of messages, all from him. The first one, WTF, Elena? They just declined the card at the spa. This is so embarrassing. What did you do? The next, this has to be some kind of mistake. Call the bank and fix it now. Then, the hotel is asking for another card for the rest of the stay. I don't have that kind of limit. You can't do this to me. I'll be stranded. I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was there to say? Stranded was a dramatic word for someone sitting in a 5-star resort with room service. I put the phone down without replying. The text kept coming. You're being cruel. After everything we went through, I was just trying to clear my head and decompress from the stress of planning your wedding. That one made me laugh out loud. My wedding. Interesting reframing after he'd unilaterally canceled it. He called. I let it ring until voicemail picked up. The messages he left were a mix of rage and theatrics. Elena, answer your phone. This isn't funny. You're acting insane. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? The spa staff acted like I was some broke scammer. I am your fiancé. He stopped himself there, then corrected. I was your fiancé. You can't just treat me like a criminal. Actually, I thought that's exactly what happens when you commit a crime. On day 2 of his trip, the tone shifted. Less anger, more panic. The hotel says if I don't give them another card, they're going to charge a different card they have on file or involve the police. My room key stopped working. They're holding my stuff. Elena, please pick up. I need help. Still, I didn't respond. Every instinct I'd spent years training to prioritize someone else's comfort over my own was screaming at me to fix it, to diffuse, to step in. But I just sat on my couch, phone face down, breathing through the urge to rescue a man who'd happily watched me drown in wedding debt he'd just deepened by stealing from me. The next call wasn't from him. It came from an unknown number, a local area code. Normally, I would have ignored that too, but something in me said pick up. Hello? Is this Elena Ward? The voice was older, male, clipped. Yes. This is Dennis Vance, Logan's father. We need to talk. The last time I'd seen Mr. Vance, he'd been sitting at our engagement party pretending to be polite while hinting that we should invite more of his golf buddies. Now his voice sounded like he'd been chewing nails. Logan tells us, he continued, that you've essentially trapped him at some resort. His card isn't working. The hotel is threatening to call the police if he doesn't settle the bill for the room and the spa day he apparently had. And his flight home has been canceled. That card is yours. You will sort this out now. There it was. The entitlement I'd always suspected, but never fully named. Mr. Vance, I said calmly. Logan informed me that he maxed out my credit card on a personal trip after canceling our wedding. I reported that use as fraudulent to the card company and the police. The consequences of his actions are his own. Fraudulent? He snapped. He's an authorized user. You gave him that card. This is a vindictive overreaction to a simple lover's quarrel. He was blowing off steam. You're ruining his vacation and scaring him half to death. Being an authorized user doesn't give him unlimited permission to spend $22,000 without my consent, I said, especially not after ending our engagement and telling me via text that he was maxing the card out for a refreshment trip. The text is documented. The card company has it. So do the police. There was a charged silence. Then he tried another angle. He said he'd pay you back. He also said he loved me, I replied. One of those statements clearly meant less than I thought it did. When Mr. Vance spoke again, his voice was a low growl. You're going to leave a young man stranded over a shopping trip? He's 30, I said, and this isn't a shopping trip, it's theft. He's the one who chose to strand himself. There was some muffled commotion on his end, and then another voice came on the line. Higher, tremulous. Mrs. Vance. Elena, please, she said, already crying. He's our son. He's terrified. You loved him. How can you do this? Think of his future. Think of what people will say if there's a criminal record. He had to buy a coach ticket home on my card because yours was canceled. The resort is sending us bills. Can't we handle this privately? I did love him, I said softly. And he chose to betray that trust in a very expensive and deliberate way. His future is something he should have considered before committing fraud. He made a mistake, she cried. He was under stress. The wedding, his job. I was under stress too, I said. I didn't respond by stealing $22,000 from him. Her sobs grew louder. Elena, please. If you ever cared about him, drop this. We'll pay some of it back. I'm sure we can work something out. But a police report is... I'm not dropping it, I said, still calm. The bank is handling it. So are the authorities. If you want to help him, talk to a lawyer. I ended the call. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding, but underneath the adrenaline, there was a strange sense of clarity, like I'd just stepped out of a fog. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time, a notification for a group chat I hadn't asked to be in. Heather, Logan's sister, had added me and several mutual friends. Her opening salvo. I cannot believe what Elena is doing to my brother. He just needed a break after everything. She's throwing his whole life away because she's bitter about the wedding and left him stranded in another country. A chorus of shocked replies followed. Wow, that's harsh, Elena. Girl, you really reported him? You couldn't just talk it out? Before I could decide whether to respond, two of my closest friends, Sarah and Malik, jumped in. Sarah. Heather, you're leaving out the part where your brother canceled the wedding and then bragged about maxing out her card for a refreshment trip. That's not a break. That's theft. Malik. Also, he's not stranded. He's at a luxury resort. Heather shot back. You don't know the full story. Sarah. We've seen the screenshots. The chat devolved into back and forth that I had zero interest in moderating. I muted it and put my phone down. Later that day, I had a long call with the fraud investigator from the card company. Her name was Mia, and she spoke with the precise patience of someone who'd seen every imaginable way people tried to justify stealing. "We've reviewed the transactions, the timeline, and the screenshots you provided," she said. "Given that your engagement ended before the charges, your documented arguments, and his text admitting to maxing out the card for a personal trip, this clearly falls under unauthorized use." "So I'm not crazy," I said. It slipped out before I could stop it. She let out a small, sympathetic chuckle. "No, you're not crazy. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do." She explained the next steps, the provisional credits to my account, the ongoing investigation, their cooperation with law enforcement. "We take this very seriously," she said, "especially at this amount. It's not a misunderstanding, it's a major financial crime." After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by the debris of a wedding that wasn't happening and a relationship that had rotted in ways I hadn't wanted to see. I'd been devastated when Logan ended our engagement. Now the grief was braided with something else. Anger, yes, but more than that, a cold, steady resolve. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishing him for breaking my heart. He could have walked away clean. He chose not to. This was about drawing a line and refusing to step back from it. For once in my life, I wasn't going to be the person who made everything easier for everyone else at my own expense. He had made his choices. Now he could live with the consequences. 3 days after the resort fiasco, a thick envelope appeared in my mailbox, my name printed in aggressive Times New Roman, the return address belonging to some small-time attorney I'd never heard of. I didn't even need to open it to know the Vances had escalated. But I did open it, and I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the middle of my hallway. The letter accused me, seriously accused me, of maliciously reporting a validly authorized user, thereby causing Logan emotional distress, reputational damage, and financial hardship due to his disrupted travel. They demanded I retract my fraud claim, apologize publicly, and pay Logan $10,000 for his trauma and spoiled trip. $10,000. For a refreshment trip he stole from me. If entitlement was a sport, the Vance family would have Olympic medals. I called my lawyer immediately. Catherine, calm and razor-sharp, asked me to scan the letter and send over all my documentation. She called me back 20 minutes later with a sound I'd never heard from her before, delighted laughter. "Oh, Elena," she said, "their claim is tissue paper in a hurricane." "Walk me through it," I said, needing to hear the legal version of what my instincts already knew. Catherine went point by point, slicing their letter apart like it offended her personally. "First, authorized user or not, Logan is not entitled to unlimited charges, especially during a breakup and with demonstrable intent to misuse the card. His text message isn't just damaging, it's a confession of fraud. Second, your week-long documented arguments with him show the relationship was fractured well before his spending spree. Third, your one-word enjoy text? They're trying to spin that as permission, but context absolutely annihilates that argument. It's obviously sarcastic. You reported the card within minutes of sending it. No reasonable person believes that was consent." I let out a slow breath. Okay. "And lastly," Catherine continued, "reporting suspected criminal activity with evidence to a financial institution and police is not malicious. It is the proper legal action. This entire letter is bluster." "Good," I said. "What do we do?" "What we always do," she replied. "Respond with facts sharp enough to draw blood." By that evening, she had drafted a masterpiece of a response. Polite, precise, and absolutely devastating. It reiterated the timeline, referenced his incriminating text, and stated in no uncertain terms that I would not be retracting anything. It also warned that any further attempts to intimidate or harass me would be documented and could result in countersuits. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. But the Vances weren't done. Far from it. The next morning, my phone buzzed with screenshots from friends. Logan's sister, Heather, was spiraling on social media. "Some people weaponize the law to hurt others when they can't handle being left," she wrote. Another, "Sending love to my brother as he recovers from a toxic relationship." And then, "Truth always comes out." "Sure does, Heather." My friends pushed back in the comments. A few mutual acquaintances asked pointed questions. The posts mysteriously disappeared shortly after, but the damage was done, mostly to Heather's own credibility. Then Mrs. Vance called my mother. A mistake she will never repeat. My mother is a gentlewoman until someone threatens her child. Then she becomes something out of a courtroom drama. She told me everything, my mom reported afterward. But I told her if her son is innocent, he should be thrilled to have everything publicly investigated, and that maybe she should focus on why her grown son believes he can commit fraud without consequences. I wish I could have seen Mrs. Vance's face. As if that wasn't enough chaos, the universe threw me another curveball. One of my coworkers sent me a link to a resale site. There's someone selling brand new designer items with tags, she wrote. Exact items Logan was bragging about getting. I clicked the link. There they were. Louis Vuitton duffel, Burberry coat, high-end sneakers, all listed under an anonymous seller profile. Bought with my card. Being flipped for cash. I forwarded the link to the fraud investigator, Mia. She emailed back within minutes. Thank you. This is extremely relevant. We'll be adding this to the file. The case was getting bigger than just a stolen shopping spree. He'd crossed from petty selfishness into something criminally stupid. By week 4, I had a folder on my computer labeled Logan Legal, filled with every text, screenshot, voicemail, social post, and document. Catherine said it was excellent preparation. I didn't tell her the truth. That part of me was collecting them like armor, proof that I wasn't overreacting, that I wasn't crazy, that what I felt, betrayed, used, humiliated, was valid. Some nights, after blocking another burner number call or seeing another vague social post about surviving liars, I would sit in bed and feel this hollow ache in my chest. I'd loved Logan. I really had. I had pictured a life with him. We had talked about kids, a house, Sunday mornings, and a kitchen we decorated together. I'd imagined him beside me during every milestone. But the Logan I was facing now was not the man I loved. He was a stranger wearing a familiar face, a stranger who believed he was owed my money, my credit, my emotional labor, my silence. One night, staring at my ceiling, I realized something chilling. If I had not drawn that line, if I had not acted, this would have become my whole life. Covering for him, saving him, funding him, explaining him, shrinking myself to make room for his entitlement. That was the moment grief stopped being dominant, and something harder, sharper, took its place. I wasn't going back. I wasn't softening. I wasn't saving him. Whatever came next, I would face it head on. And the next thing coming was bigger than I expected. The big shift happened quietly. No dramatic knock at my door, no cinematic confrontation. Just an email from Catherine one gray Tuesday morning with the subject line, Update on Logan V. My stomach tightened. I clicked. Elena, the email read, the district attorney's office has officially picked up the case. I had to read it twice. The DA, not just the bank, not just a police report in some online system. The criminal justice system was now involved, and Logan was no longer just my lying ex-fiancé. He was a person under investigation for felony grand larceny and credit card fraud. For a moment, a strange cocktail of emotions hit me all at once. Relief, vindication, sadness, grief for the version of him I thought was real. Then another feeling settled in, something I hadn't felt since before the breakup. Safety, because finally this wasn't just on me anymore. Catherine called an hour later. They have enough to proceed, she said. His text alone is damning, but the forensic timeline, the unauthorized nature of the charges, the resale listings, everything reinforces intent. So what happens now? I asked, hearing my own voice tremble. He'll be charged formally, she said. Most likely, he'll be offered a plea deal. With this much evidence, he'd be foolish to fight it. I thought of Logan's parents, of their indignant phone calls, their bizarre insistence that I had stranded their son. I thought of Heather's posts, the group chat attacks, the threats, the guilt tripping. It all felt very small now. Within a week, I got confirmation. Logan had been arrested and arraigned. The charges were official. He appeared in court looking, according to the one mutual acquaintance who attended, like someone who finally realized consequences are real. His family tried to spin the narrative outside the courthouse, crying, shaking their heads, telling anyone who would listen that it was all a misunderstanding, that I was overreacting, vindictive, dramatic. But the evidence was sitting in the DA's hands, and facts don't cry, facts don't lie. In the end, Logan took a plea deal. No jail time, something that stung me at first, I'll admit, but the deal came with teeth. Full restitution of the $20,800, funded by him, or, let's be honest, his parents. 5 years probation, mandatory financial responsibility counseling, an ethics course, travel restrictions, monthly check-ins, and the biggest one of all, a felony conviction. A permanent stain that would follow him into every job application, every apartment interview, every future relationship where someone had the sense to Google him. When I heard the terms, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt done. Fully, finally done. Like the last invisible thread tying me to him had been cut. His father, according to witnesses, had a meltdown in court, yelling about how the DA was ruining a young man's life. His mother sobbed dramatically, clutching her pearls like she'd just witnessed a tragedy. Heather posted vague Instagram stories with quotes about wolves in sheep's clothing. Catherine told me not to engage. I didn't. Not once. Not ever again. Life strangely became quiet after that. The noise of the Vances faded, their lawyer's bluster dissolved, and the smear posts dwindled into half-hearted pity fishing. Logan himself went silent, probably on legal advice. His angry texts and threats disappeared. His voice, which had once filled my life so completely, became nothing more than a memory. And somewhere in all that quiet, I started rebuilding. I used the money I'd saved by canceling the wedding, plus the refunds from vendors who showed mercy, to put a down payment on a small condo. Signing the papers felt surreal. It felt powerful. It felt like a reclamation. I started going to the gym again. Reconnected with friends I'd unintentionally neglected while drowning in wedding planning. Had long, warm dinners with people who loved me without conditions. People who didn't see me as a resource, a safety net, or a financial plan. Therapy helped too, a lot. My therapist asked me a question in one session that gutted me. When did you first learn to tolerate less than you deserved? I didn't have an answer that day, but I kept digging. And the more I dug, the more I realized what Logan had taken advantage of wasn't my wallet. It was my willingness to excuse bad behavior in the name of love. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. One afternoon, months after everything settled, a friend pulled me aside at a coffee shop. I should tell you, she said hesitantly. Logan has been asking people if you'd take him back. He's been saying he made a mistake. I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not fear, not nostalgia. Just nothing. He can ask, I said, sipping my cappuccino. The answer's still no. She grinned. Good. Later that day, I walked home past a bridal boutique. In the window, a mannequin wore a dress almost identical to mine, the one still boxed in the back of my closet. I paused, expecting a sharp twist in my chest, but instead I felt gratitude. Because that woman, the one who bought that dress, deserved better than a man who thought "I love you" was permission to commit fraud. And I became her again. Not instantly, not easily, but piece by piece. I didn't start dating again right away, but eventually, cautiously, I let someone take me out for coffee. A man named Marcus who asked me about my career, listened when I spoke, and never once hinted that I should take care of him financially. We've been seeing each other slowly, intentionally, with boundaries and honesty, and no rushing. When the topic of prenups came up, because yes, it did, he said exactly what I needed to hear. Two people protecting themselves is not a lack of trust. It's respect. I think that's when I knew I was healed enough to move forward. Sometimes I still think about Logan, not with longing, but with curiosity, with disbelief, with the kind of quiet disbelief that comes after waking from a nightmare and realizing it wasn't real anymore. He chose entitlement. He chose deceit. He chose fraud. And he chose to weaponize my love against me. Every consequence he faces is the result of those choices, not mine. In the end, the wedding deposit I lost wasn't a waste. It was tuition, a $5,000 lesson in seeing people clearly, in drawing boundaries, in never again mistaking manipulation for affection, and in choosing myself. That's the ending I'm keeping.